Hey, I'm Midnight. I've been coaching in Deadlock for over a year, and today I want to talk about tech for every single character. Some of this tech will be super essential to the character. For example, once you have dash tier 2 on Abrams, you want to buffer your melee, which is holding the melee key before the dash expires, to guarantee you get a heavy melee unless they have over 40% debuff resistance, and then when you don't have a T2, you just want a light melee after your dash. And for other characters like Bebop, it might be more standardized tech. For example, when you uppercut on Bebop, you can hide a light melee in the animation. If you light melee immediately after you uppercut, which can be very useful for farming extra damage. Just don't do it too many times in a row or your enemies might start to read you. I tend to keep my guides pretty fast paced, so before we get into the swing of things, I do have a very major announcement. I've scaled my channel off all of my on-stream coaching being free. However, as the channel gets bigger, there's more and more demand and queue times are longer and longer, and it gets harder and harder to manage everyone, so I have started coaching for Gosu Academy. I've been working with Gosu's team on this project for a while, and it's combining all of the best coaches in Deadlock into one area. This will be the best way to improve in Deadlock, with weekly classes taught by Piggy, Ranger, Metro, and myself. And we're also offering organized weekly coach scrims and VOD reviews. So if you want to improve, this really is the place to go because again, it has all of the best coaches and I'm going to be putting a lot of my time and energy into this project. If you want to check it out, you can get your first month entirely free and just see what it's like. If you don't like it, just cancel. I promise you, you will see improvement. It's worth it, and I'm going to be attending every single one of the other coaches' classes just to improve my own coaching. As for Billy, he has a non-documented passive, which is when you light melee on him, you won't get slowed down like any other character. He essentially just has fleet foot for light melees, and then also if you hold his 1, it'll preserve a little momentum. So if you're doing something crazy, trying to go off the top rope, and you just want to get that little extra distance, just hold the 1, although be careful you don't hold it for too long, or you'll kind of stall in the air. Also, for canceling Billy ult, a reason the chain doesn't break a lot of the time is it's kind of around your camera. So it's not just you have to get your body in between you and the enemy. Like this, you can see it broke because I can't get, not where you're actively looking, but where you can put your camera. When the dummy's over here, I cannot put my camera anywhere to see the dummy, so it'll still break, and that's why normally having a ceiling is a much better way to break it. There seems to be some small variations to this camera rule, but it seems to be the best way to manage when the chain actually breaks and why it isn't breaking. If you're a Billy, just hooking someone and then staying at the right angle. So Calico's tech is pretty simple, but it honestly makes this character way easier to play. If you play Calico, you probably have a problem hitting people with your 2 in front of you. You can see if I stand on the 10-meter line, I put Sinclair on the 15-meter line, and I just 2 forward, I can't connect. However, all you have to do is jump, look down, and then 2. It makes you go much shorter. It makes it significantly easier to hit someone who is much closer. You can see I can walk about 3 meters closer and I still am hitting her too. Again, literally just jumping, looking down, and 2ing makes it so much easier to connect your 2 on this character when someone is very close range. Okay, Doorman's tech is pretty simple. First off, if you're ever running the urn or the enemy is running the urn, just put a door on top of urn. If the enemies are there, it just applies a lot of threat. And if you're running the urn, you have the threat of being able to cash it from all the way across the map. If your team is just holding urn here waiting, the enemy team has to play on top of this urn and hold this ground much more than they usually would need to, because you can door on top of it. And if the enemy tries to cash the urn, you just want to open your door, melee it off them, cart them away, and then heist the urn. Normally the urn wouldn't actually go through the door, it just depends on positioning, but you just stand here, pick it up, walk away with it. And then for more standard Doorman tech, you can actually stand on his doors. You can use the doors to get the cheeky off angles you wouldn't usually be able to get to. If you have a Lash, you can just put your door on the wall and tell him to posture up, just waiting on top of it. Give him some cheeky angle if you're with a duo. Now, Drifter has some really cheeky tech. You can look up these things called Drifter lineups, which basically, if say I'm invading the enemy centers, I get caught, I'm running away. I can just do this as a Kobe shot, hit the enemy, TP all the way back here. But if you look up certain lineups, you can learn all these different lineups for camps. You can do it off minion waves to rotate from mid to a side lane and just instantly gank. There's just look up Drifter lineups. There's a ton of them if you really want to get invested in it. But they give you a ton of mobility just to get around the map, especially if you get caught and you're running away from enemies. Just 2ing to camps or knowing these lineups when you're trying to invade and you know you have a camp up behind you. The best way to get out of anything, full stop. Really good if you learn these lineups if you're playing him a lot. Dynamo has a couple things. One, if you're trying to save an enemy who's away from you or behind a wall, you can still use your 2 through walls to pull people out. It's super good for saving your allies, saving anyone, also just using your 2 in general to dodge, to get people out of things like holiday ults. Also, if you have an ally who's caching the urn, you can 2 them on top of urn drop off and the urn will still fully be deposited. Honestly, Grey Talon doesn't really have that much tech. One thing a lot of people don't know is that you can alt cast his dash to do what I call a little ED dash. This terrorized me for a while when I didn't know why it was happening, but if you're fighting someone indoors, you don't actually want to go that high, it can be good for getting the buffs, getting the shotgun shot and all of that. Also, if you throw your trap and then you use your arrow to insta-proc it, you can curse things like mid-boss so they can't attack you. And then also, once you get 2 points in it, it will apply the minus bullet resist. Something I'm surprised a lot of people don't know about on Haze is if your enemies are playing off audio, you can just bait them with a fake ult. I can turn off no cooldown. This doesn't put your ult on cooldown. As long as you cancel it before this little timer hits 0, you can, if you have the repress the button to cancel, that works. If you have a dedicated cancel key, any of it works. You can just bait the ult. If you're running at an enemy, you just want to audio proc bait, make them think you don't have ult, make them think it got instant cancelled, or just scare them off, use it for space, prop it and then run. It's very, very good for putting space in between you and your enemy, because the vast majority of the player base doesn't know you can even do this. And refund the cooldown in the same way you can with Bebop ult. If you stick it a little too long though, it will put it on cooldown. Also, if you're playing Silence Wave Haze, I see a lot of people do the combo wrong. You want to sleep, ult, and then Silence Wave. The wake up timer that the sleep has on it is actually not long enough for them to react with any abilities. If you ult and then immediately Silence Wave after, you do not have to Silence Wave before your ult. Holiday has a ton of tech, and I have it all laid out in my Holiday build. I have all of these, you can see a lot of it, but the most useful tech is that if you dash 2 and then jump, you can get this little movement speed boost. Also, when you do it, it doesn't use the charge on your bounce side where you get the full movement control. Also, I have a short on air strafing if you want to learn how to air strafe. That's a whole different thing, but that'll let you get 5 extra meters movement speed. On Holiday, the TLDR is you look right, look left, look right, just hold D as you're looking right, A as you're looking left, and it'll give you extra movement speed, just the way Source Engine works. But this tech is super useful for getting away from enemies. If you're inside trying to run away, it's so useful. You can put so much space in between you and your enemies so quickly. Infernus doesn't have that much tech. One thing is you can use the end of his ult to do a melee cancel. If you're dashing in, you pop your ult, you want to cancel the dash, and then melee at the last second. As long as you melee as the ult is expiring, they will be stunned and your animation of exploding will still apply the melee, so you can just get an absolutely free melee. If you want to get sweaty with Ivy, she also has lineups. I don't know any of them off the top of my head, but if you see this camps up, there's lineups where you can just come back here, throw the Kutsu. When it's maxed, it'll just full farm this camp. And then also when you stone form, it's really good if you can land on top of something. You can do this on top of your shot very often. For one, you're not allowing enemies to melee you as your stone form expires. There's a small window where you can't parry and you can't be meleeed, but also you're just shortening the animation where you're in your stone form. So if you're using it to heal, or you're just not trying to put yourself on the ground or you're in a very vulnerable position for the enemies to set up on you, it is very, very useful to do. And also before you ult, say you're running away and you're 1 HP, just hit a wall jump before you ult. It makes it so the enemies can't headshot you. It makes it so it's a lot harder for them to hit you. And the difference of ulting in a door frame where the enemies can just beam you as you walk up versus ulting over here. Again, you can do it with a double jump like I did, but it's better if you do it with a wall jump. It's very, very significant. If you want to get cheeky with Kelvin, if you know the enemy is going to path to a vent, you can just put your ice path over it to block their pathing. It makes it so they can't easily hit the vent. They would have to break the path to actually hit the vent, or even if you kind of miss, you'll still put it in the way, so when they hit it, they'll kind of slingshot weirdly off with their momentum. It's really good for using it to block an enemy that you know is going to try to use the vent to escape. Honestly, Geist is really one-dimensional and doesn't really have any tech. The only thing to mention is that you can alt cast your 2 to heal your allies, sacrificing your own health. Again, its character is very, very linear. For Lash, you can use something called a ZMC, which is where you use control to get off zipline, and then if you just press your ult, you can get a momentum ult. Allows you to catch a lot of people out, get a moving ult. It's very good if you're trying to ult the enemies into Walker, into a Guardian. And all you have to do, press control and then ult. You can toss in an extra side dash if you want to get a little further, but it really doesn't matter. Just press control, ult, you'll go flying. Another thing you can do is something called a coyote jump, which is where you press control and then immediately press space and then ult, and you get the height of jumping off a zipline with your space bar, but you still get the momentum that you get from jumping off it with control bar. It sounds complicated, it's very easy to do. Just control and then immediately space. It won't take a stamina, it won't take anything. You can actually do this off most objects in the game. If you jump the frame after you get off of them, you'll still do a normal jump even though you're in the air, and that just happens to apply to ziplines as well. McGinnis is also a character that just doesn't really have much in the way of tech. If you ult and then grab ziplines, you can ride the zipline while ulting, but other than that, she's kind of just what you see is what you get. For Mirage, if you're struggling to click the enemies on the minimap, or they're somewhere behind something where you can't really click them, you can actually use the portraits at the top to teleport to the enemies. Makes it significantly easier if something's happening during a team fight. You can also look at enemies' HP at the top and see, oh, this guy's 1 HP, I can't click him in the middle of the fight, but I can TP to him. For Mo and Krill, you can actually burrow under McGinnis' wall, and then also you can use Warp Stone to get height, which is the only way to get verticality in Mo and Krill ult, except in the little burrow animation you can still wall jump. So if you're trying to get up somewhere quickly, just tossing in a wall jump, you can also still do stuff like mantle, mantle slide, all of that. Paige also has lineups for her dragon, but if you're just farming a camp, just think about how you're throwing it to try to angle it to hit all of the creeps. Keep in mind it goes off walls, so you can angle yourself really well, and then also, once you have barrier maxed, if an ally is about to die but you don't have line of sight on them so you can't barrier, you can use it on yourself and it'll still go to them through the wall, which can be super useful for saving teammates. Paradox has two things. I'm sure you all know the first thing, which is you shouldn't wall and then ult. You should ult and then wall just to save time and make it so you aren't wasting any time where you place your wall and then ult, and in that split second the enemy has escaped. But then also, if you're ulting someone at max range, in the time frame you would normally place your wall, you can do a heavy melee and you will actually melee them as you're going through. As you can see, the 116 gun damage that appears is my melee connecting. This only works at max range with her ult at base, not after you put points into it, just base max range. Also, if you're getting ulted by a Paradox, you can do this to her, although you have significantly more leeway because you can charge your melee much sooner. Pocket has a couple things. One, if you Majestic Leap into the air and then 1, you can recast without ending your 1 to keep getting barrage stacks on the enemy. And then also, you can ult objectives, which is super useful for sieging walkers if you're just trying to kill a walker quickly or split a walker quickly, or even ulting the down patron just to finish it off. Oh, and then for the very new pockets, you can teleport while you're in case, and it'll apply the case damage where you teleport to. If you're playing 7, you can press F7 and then type kill me into the console to put yourself out of your misery. One honorable mention for Shiv that isn't really tech is you want to make sure to try to use your 2 for verticality when escaping. This is also true of Billy. I see this done wrong a lot. Just keep in mind when you have a dash ability, it's so good for getting that vertical momentum and a really good way to escape enemies who don't have that in their kit. As far as Shiv's actual tech, if you ult at the max range of 15 meters, which by the way, when you're in any kind of custom area like custom game or the sandbox, if you hold alt, it'll show meters. If you ult at the absolute maximum range, Geist can't ult you out of your ult. If you ult closer, she will be able to ult you in the air and just cancel your ult, put it on cooldown. But if you ult at the maximum possible range, Geist will not be able to ult you back. I don't know how I forgot to mention flying Shiv tech, but if you right click and then wall bounce, you can get a lot more distance. And then if you right click behind you while you're sliding, you can increase that and just keep sliding around on the floor. If you bolt above someone's head as Sinclair, it'll still lock onto them and go to them, unless you're within 10 meters, in which case it'll just fly normally. Then also when you're playing Sinclair and sometimes your bolts go really weird or go not where you're looking, it's because they lock on to a camp or enemy through a wall. This has been in the game for forever and just not patched, unfortunately. It is so annoying. Also in lane, when you hold bridge control, when you put your 2 on top of bridge, if you want to get it in an even better position, you can just jump forward, recast your 2, and apply a lot of harass. Also, newer Sinclairs will shoot their bolts at like a 50-degree angle. It is much better to shoot your bolts at like a 10-degree angle, just hugging the enemies, so when you recast, your bolt is immediately there. Keep in mind, the time in air for max damage is only 2 seconds. So if you're far away, this is just as good for damage as doing this, but it's significantly easier to hit. And even if you're close to them, the extra 0.2 to 6 seconds of damage you would get is not worth how many more bolts you're going to miss just because of how much more you have to read an enemy when you toss them this far up. On Victor, when you die and you use your ult, if you put a point into your ult while dead, it'll still do the extra radius and you can still refund it. If we look at that again, you can see Geist isn't in the area. I'll just die normally. She won't get stunned. I die again. I put a point in. I die. I take the point out. For one, the visual area doesn't update, so she is still hit even though she's outside of it from her perspective. And against Victor, a lot of people will just stand at the very edge of his ult and then also still applies the damage, the stun, and gets that extra radius. You can refund the point completely for free. I'm sure they'll probably patch being able to refund the point after you die. However, I still think you'll be able to put one in, and it's still super useful tech if you just want to get that stun and damage on someone who's standing right at the edge, or multiple enemies who are standing right at the edge. As far as Vindicta, if you dash 2 and then cancel, you can get yourself a little movement speed boost to get out. I don't really play Vindicta, so I'm not even doing this as efficiently as you can for momentum, but it's just dash 2 and then cancel your 2. For me, I have to press the key again to cancel. My dedicated cancel key doesn't work for canceling her flight. I couldn't tell you why. That's the most efficient I can do it. I believe you can get even faster if you're good at her, but again, just get the timing down. It's dash 2, cancel 2, free momentum, free escape if you're getting jumped. Viscous' whole thing is tech. He can have it. I mean, he does have videos of his own on other channels. I'm not going to go too in depth into Viscous. The most efficient way to do Viscous damage is a Skinner combo, which is 3 right-click splatter. And if you do it very quickly, it looks like this. It's just the fastest way to do damage on him. If you're sweating and get hit by the punch 2, you can normally melee them out of the air, which works very well in tandem with this piece of tech, which is when you're casting your ult, you can melee. You can also still use items, but it works very well for just casting your ult, meleeing someone, getting free damage, getting on top of them. You'll then immediately hit your ball damage and your ball stun. So if you're hitting with them a Skinner combo, pressing ult, and then meleeing them in the air, you are just going to do an immeasurable amount of damage in the combo. This especially works well with the express shot build because you're weaving in that right click for damage. Also, you can punch off the skybox, which is super useful if someone's trying to escape off this vent. You can just punch them out of the air, they'll get punched down, you can catch them out. It also is super good against flyers like Vindicta or Talent, or if Lash is ulting in the air, anyone in the air, and you just punch them down, it feels great. As Vyper, normally when you bola someone, you can't do damage aside from placing Venom on them. However, if you buy armor-piercing rounds, any of your bullets that trigger the armor-piercing round effect will still do damage to the enemy. Also, armor-piercing rounds allows you to shoot through McGinnis wall and Kelvin dome, although that is a lot more nichely useful and more useful against them. But with Vyper, this is super useful if you're buying that item anyway, and you bola someone or you bola multiple people, just shoot them in the head, and you're still going to do a ton of damage with no counterplay. I honestly don't have anything for Warden. Just make sure you're monitoring the enemy's stam. Keep in mind your flask takes off an enemy's stamina, so if you're paying attention, especially if you're against a one stam character like Holiday, Mina, Bebop, and they use their dash, you can just hit them with a flask and then cage, and they're pretty likely going to get hit by the cage because they have no stamina. You really want to play around stamina in lane as Warden. Wraith's character doesn't really have any tech, but an item she loves to buy is Capacitor, and this item does so much and has so much tech. First off, it can cleanse bridge buffs. If the enemy has a bridge buff, capacitor them. They don't have a bridge buff. This also applies for cultist. Secondly, if an enemy's TPing out and you capacitor them, it'll remove the teleporter buff and they will just be stuck in this animation forever until they step out of it and re-enter. Again, you just capacitor them while they're teleporting and it completely removes the buff, forces them to step out and step back in to actually be allowed to teleport. And if your question is, I wonder if capacitor can cleanse this, I guarantee you the answer is yes. This item is disgusting how much it can remove. And on to our final hero, Yamato. Honestly, Yamato mains make her tech out to be super complicated. It really isn't. Dash and then press 1 to do this little slidey dash. If you press your 1 and then mantle something, you can do this little mantle slash. This also works while ulting. You can do a little mantle ult. You can also toss your 2 while you're in ult. Again, at the halfway point through your ult, you get the ability to like pre-start actions. And if you're playing Yamato, you're chasing an enemy, you use your 2, they're running away. You can cancel at the last second for a lot of momentum. You can also do this to minions. And again, it allows you a lot of outplay. If you just cancel at the last second, you can then slide, get all your movement, and get out. Okay, that was it for this video. If you like the video, you know what to do. I hope you enjoyed. This guide was, I hope it does well. I think it'll do fine. I don't expect this to pop off, but I think it should do fine. I've just been kind of wanting to make this for a while because I've been getting all this niche tech for characters from coaching that just kind of piles up as like knowledge, and I just wanted to compile it all. Let me know what guide you want to see next. I'm thinking it's going to be a comms guide, but I'm not sure. I really appreciate any advice. Check out the Academy. I'm really looking forward to coaching for them, and I hope you enjoyed.